No hotel rooms, no kisses, no evidence. For months, that was the checklist I kept running through my head. If none of those things existed, then nothing was wrong. That's what I told myself every single time the feeling came back. But somewhere in the last year of my marriage, I stopped looking for proof that Adam had crossed a line. I started realizing the line had already moved, and I hadn't been the one who moved it. My name is Claire. I was 34 when this started, married to Adam for 6 years, together for 9. If you'd asked me back then to describe my marriage, I would have used the word solid. Not exciting, not perfect, but solid. We had a rhythm. Sunday grocery runs, Wednesday phone calls with his mother. The kind of quiet, unremarkable stability I used to think was the whole point of marrying someone. Adam worked in operations for a mid-sized logistics company. He wasn't a flashy person. He liked routines, spreadsheets, predictable weekends. That predictability was one of the reasons I married him. I had dated men who kept me guessing, and I was tired of guessing. So when he mentioned a new coworker for the first time, a name, nothing more, I didn't think twice. "Kayla's actually really good at this stuff," he said one night, scrolling through something on his laptop. "She caught an error that would have cost us a client." I nodded, said something like, "That's great, babe," and meant it. I liked that Adam had people at work who made his job easier. I liked that he came home less stressed some nights. I had no idea I was watching the very beginning of something. Not because it was hidden from me, because it didn't look like anything yet. That's the part nobody tells you about this kind of story. It doesn't begin with a lie. It begins with a name, said in a completely ordinary tone on a completely ordinary Tuesday. Kayla's name started showing up more. Not dramatically. I want to be clear about that. This isn't a story about a sudden discovery. It's a story about a slope so gradual I didn't feel myself sliding down it. Kayla thinks we should restructure the whole workflow. Kayla said something today that actually made me rethink the whole project. Kayla's the only one on that team who actually gets it. At first, I just registered these as work updates, Adam venting about his job the way he always had. But somewhere along the way, the tone shifted. He wasn't just telling me what Kayla said. He was telling me what Kayla thought, as though her opinion carried a weight that used to belong only to the two of us. I remember a night when Adam came home frustrated about a decision his manager had made. He barely got through explaining it to me before saying, "I already talked to Kayla about it. She agrees it's ridiculous." Something small pinched in my chest. Not jealousy exactly, more like displacement. Like a seat I didn't know I'd been sitting in had quietly been given to someone else. I told myself I was being ridiculous. Coworkers vent to each other. That's normal. That's healthy, even. I didn't want to be the wife who panicked over an office friendship. I'd seen women like that in movies, and I never wanted to become one of them. So I said nothing. I smiled. I asked follow-up questions about his day, the way a good partner does. But the pattern kept building, and it didn't only build from Adam's side. I noticed in small ways that Kayla was the one setting the pace. She started messaging him on weekends, always framed as work. "Quick question about the client file. Sorry to bother you on a Saturday, but this can't wait until Monday." Except it always seemed to wait fine for everyone else on the team. Only Adam got the Saturday messages. Once, at a team happy hour I couldn't attend, she rearranged the seating before Adam arrived, so the one open chair left was next to hers. He mentioned it to me afterward like it was a funny coincidence. I didn't think it was a coincidence. I think it was a decision, made quietly, by someone who understood exactly what she was doing and knew it would never look like enough to complain about. She was careful. That was what made her dangerous. Every individual move was small enough to defend. Together, they formed a woman steadily, deliberately making herself the center of my husband's attention, 1 plausible, deniable inch at a time. Adam started running personal frustrations by Kayla before he ran them by me. A disagreement with his brother, a worry about his father's health. Things that used to land on our kitchen table first now seem to make us stop somewhere else along the way. I noticed it the way you notice a draft in a house before you find the open window. A subtle cold spot. Nothing you could point to and call proof. One evening, I asked, carefully, "Do you talk to Kayla about, personal stuff, not just work?" Adam looked up from his phone, and for a second, something flickered across his face. Then it smoothed over into mild irritation. "She's just easy to talk to," he said. "It's not a big deal." "I didn't say it was a big deal," I said. "You kinda did, with your face," he said, and went back to his phone. I let it go. Not because I believed him completely, but because I didn't have a name yet for what I was feeling. It wasn't suspicion of an affair. It was something quieter and harder to explain. The sense that a part of my husband's inner life was slowly being rerouted somewhere I wasn't invited. I wouldn't have that language for months. Back then, all I had was a small, persistent unease I kept talking myself out of. The moment that actually cracked something open happened almost by accident. I'd been struggling, quietly, with something about my job, a performance review that had shaken my confidence more than I wanted to admit. I told Adam about it one night in bed, in that specific, vulnerable voice you use when you're handing someone something fragile. He held me. He said the right things. I felt closer to him than I had in weeks. 3 days later, at a small work dinner Adam brought me to, Kayla, whom I was meeting for the first time, turned to me with a sympathetic look and said, "Adam told me about your review. That sounds so unfair. You're clearly good at what you do." I smiled. I said thank you. And underneath the smile, something in me went very still. It wasn't the words, it was the access. A private, tender moment between my husband and me, something I'd trusted him with in our bed in the dark, had traveled to a woman I'd never met, wrapped in enough detail that she could summarize it back to me with confidence. Later that night in the car, I asked him about it. I tried to keep my voice light. "You told Kayla about my review?" "I mentioned it," he said, "in passing. Why does it matter?" "It just feels weird that she knew before I even told my own sister." He sighed, that particular sigh, the one that arrives right before he tells me I'm overreacting. "You're being insecure about this. She's just a friend. You're making this weird." There it was, the 3 lines I would hear in rotating combinations for the rest of this story. "You're being insecure. She's just a friend. You're making this weird." A few weeks later, Adam did something that made those words feel less like accidents and more like a choice he kept making again and again. I had a work event, a small dinner celebrating a project I'd spent months on, the kind of night I'd been looking forward to for weeks. Adam had promised to come. That afternoon, he called to say Kayla needed help finishing a presentation due the next morning, and he was going to stay late to walk her through it. "Can't someone else help her?" I asked. "I already told her I would," he said, like the conversation was already over. He wasn't lying to me. He wasn't sneaking around. That was almost the hardest part. He simply decided, in full view of me, that Kayla's deadline mattered more than a night I'd asked him to show up for. He didn't weigh it as a betrayal. He didn't think there was anything to weigh. And that, more than any secret message ever could have, told me exactly where I ranked. Each one was small enough to swallow on its own. Together, they formed something else, a kind of quiet redirection, where every time I brought up a feeling, the conversation ended up being about my feeling being wrong, instead of about what had actually happened. I want to be honest about something. I didn't confront him again for a while after that. Not because I felt resolved, because I was tired of being told my discomfort was the problem. That's a particular kind of exhaustion. The exhaustion of doubting your own read on a situation, over and over, because the person who could clarify things keeps handing you back your own anxiety instead of an answer.
I started writing things down in my phone's notes app. Small moments, dates, nothing dramatic, just so I wouldn't lose track of what was real. I didn't know yet what I was building a case for. I just knew I needed somewhere to put it.
Around this time, I had coffee with Nicole, a friend from college who has a talent for saying the thing you've been circling for weeks in one clean sentence. I told her everything. The mentions, the shared frustrations, the review dinner. I expected her to ask if I thought Adam was cheating. That's the question everyone asks, the one with a yes or no answer that would have almost been a relief. Instead, she was quiet for a second, stirring her coffee, and then she said something I've thought about almost every day since. Claire, you're not upset because he has a female friend. You're upset because he started protecting that friendship from you. I didn't say anything. I just felt the truth of it land somewhere behind my ribs. Think about it, she continued. If it was really nothing, he'd want you to know everything. He'd bring her name up the way you'd bring up any other coworker, easily, casually, without flinching when you ask questions about her. Instead, every time you get close to that friendship, he gets defensive. That's not about Kayla, Claire. That's about what he's decided you're not allowed to look at too closely. I drove home that day turning her words over and over. It wasn't about whether Kayla existed in Adam's life. Coworkers exist. Friendships exist. It was about the fact that a part of his emotional world had quietly been marked off limits to me, and he was the one guarding the boundary, not her. For the first time, I stopped asking myself, am I overreacting? I started asking a different question, one I couldn't shake for the rest of that year. Why did I have to compete for emotional access in my own marriage? The moment that changed everything for me happened at another one of those work dinners, a few months later. I watched them from across the table, not suspiciously, just watching, the way you watch two people who share something you don't have a name for yet. Adam started a sentence about a project, and Kayla finished it before he got there, in the exact rhythm he would have used himself. They laughed at the same beat, at a reference that clearly belonged to some shared history I hadn't been part of. When someone asked a question about their team's project, they answered in overlapping fragments, each one picking up precisely where the other left off, like two people who had rehearsed a conversation without ever needing to rehearse it. Nobody touched, nobody whispered. There was nothing you could photograph and call evidence, and that was exactly what unsettled me. There didn't need to be. I sat there, technically present, and felt entirely outside my own husband's evening. Not excluded on purpose, excluded by fluency. They spoke a language built from thousands of small, ordinary exchanges I hadn't been in the room for. I remember looking down at my plate and thinking very clearly, this is what it feels like to become a guest in your own marriage. On the drive home, Adam was in a good mood, humming along to the radio, completely unaware of what I'd just watched. I didn't bring it up. I'd learned by then that bringing it up only ever led to the same 3 sentences. I wasn't ready to hear them again that night. Instead, I sat with the quiet, sinking recognition that whatever this was, it didn't need a hotel room to hurt. It didn't need a single inappropriate text message. It only needed 2 people who had, without ever naming it, decided that a certain kind of closeness belonged only to each other. The final piece came from something so small I almost didn't notice it. I was looking for a phone charger in Adam's desk drawer when I found a small, hand-lettered card tucked inside a book he'd clearly been keeping it in on purpose. It wasn't a love letter. There was nothing overtly romantic in it. It was a thank you note from Kayla, referencing an inside joke about a difficult client, thanking him for always getting it when no one else on the team did. I want to be honest. If you'd read that card cold with no context, you'd call it harmless, a colleague's thank you note. That's exactly why it hit me the way it did. It wasn't the words. It was the fact that he'd kept it, tucked it somewhere private, somewhere sentimental, the way you keep the things that actually mean something to you. In 6 years of marriage,
I couldn't remember the last time Adam had kept anything I'd written him in a place like that. I sat on the floor of our bedroom for a long time, holding a piece of paper that would have meant nothing to a stranger and meant everything to me. I want to be precise about what actually broke something in me that afternoon, because it wasn't the card itself. If I'd found it in a drawer full of other cards, from coworkers, from friends, from his mother, I wouldn't have thought twice. The card wasn't the evidence. The evidence was where he'd chosen to keep it. Not in a drawer with other work things, tucked inside a book he'd read for himself, in a private corner of our bedroom, in the kind of place you put something you go back to. He hadn't just received a kind note from a colleague. He had decided somewhere along the way, and without ever discussing it with me, that this particular note deserved to be kept, and kept quietly. It wasn't that he had a friend. It was that somewhere along the way, he had started giving her the part of himself that used to belong inside our marriage. The part that keeps things, that treasures small moments, that feels known. I finally understood what I'd been circling for a year. This was never going to resolve into a confession, a discovered text thread, a dramatic unraveling. There was no piece of hard evidence waiting for me. There was only this, a quiet, private accumulation of a closeness I had been slowly priced out of, in my own home, in my own marriage.
I didn't confront Adam that night. I waited until I felt steady, which took almost a week. When I finally sat him down, I didn't bring the card as a weapon. I didn't yell. I told him, calmly, what I'd noticed. The mentions, the shared frustrations before mine, the dinner, the card. I told him how it had felt to sit across from him and Kayla and realize I couldn't follow the conversation. Not because it was complicated, but because I hadn't been invited into the history that made it make sense. He got defensive, the way he always did. Nothing happened, he said. Claire, nothing physical has ever happened between us. I know, I said, and I meant it. I believed him about that specific claim, completely. Then what is this about? He asked, frustrated, like I'd been building a case against him for a crime he hadn't committed. That was never the point, I said. I explained, as clearly as I could, that betrayal doesn't always look like a hotel room. Sometimes it looks like giving someone else the parts of yourself a marriage is supposed to hold. Your instinctive first reaction to bad news. The details you keep because they mattered. The version of closeness that used to be reserved for the person you married. I asked him one question, the same one Nicole had handed me weeks earlier. Why did you need to protect that friendship from me, if there was nothing to protect it from? He didn't have an answer for that. Not that night. I won't tell you exactly what happened to my marriage after that conversation, because honestly, that part is still unfolding, even now. Some things did change. Adam set clearer boundaries at work. Not because I demanded it, but because, I think, hearing it out loud finally made him see the shape of what he'd been doing. Other things are harder to undo. Trust, once you understand exactly how it was spent, doesn't rebuild on the same schedule it broke on. What I can tell you is what changed in me. I stopped measuring my marriage by the question, did he cheat? That question, I realized, had been protecting me from a harder one all along. The question I live with now is simpler and somehow much bigger. Is this still the kind of marriage I want to be in? One where I have to compete, quietly, for the parts of my husband that should have belonged to me by default? Looking back now, I can finally say plainly what took me a year to understand in fragments. Kayla didn't stumble into my marriage by accident. She built proximity to my husband one deniable inch at a time. The weekend messages, the rearranged chair, each move small enough to survive being questioned. And Adam didn't just fail to stop her. He protected the space she'd built for herself, defending her instead of hearing me, choosing her deadline over my night, keeping her cards somewhere private instead of somewhere shared. Piece by piece, without one dramatic betrayal I could point to, I was the one who got displaced from my own marriage.
I think about that dinner sometimes. The two of them finishing each other's sentences, fluent in a language I'd never been taught. And I think about the card, tucked away somewhere private, holding a kind of tenderness I hadn't seen directed at me in longer than I wanted to admit. The red flag was never that Adam had a female friend. People are allowed friends. The red flag was that he needed to hide how important she had become, that the friendship needed protecting from his own wife in the first place. For months, I kept telling myself, no hotel rooms, no kisses, no evidence. I spent all that time looking for proof that he had crossed a line. I didn't realize until much later that the line had already moved, quietly, piece by piece, long before I ever thought to look for it.